My stepmom, Jenna, tried to ruin my wedding by sending my fiance, Adrien, edited photos that made it seem like I was cheating. She's now asking for forgiveness after being kicked out. I'm 27 years old and getting married in 3 weeks. Adrien, 28, and I have been together for a decade, and he proposed a few months ago. We've been friends since school, and even though my stepmom, Jenna, who is 47 and dislikes me, has always seemed to like Adrien. Jenna married my dad when I was in 8th grade. Although my parents were never married, my mom had partial custody of me. Even after my parents split up, they remained on good terms and did their best to co-parent me, which I appreciate deeply. My dad met Jenna through work, and after dating for a while, they tied the knot. Jenna was kind to me during their dating phase, probably to secure her position as my stepmom without any hurdles. However, her true nature only became apparent after they got married. After Jenna married my father, our relationship took a turn for the worse. She seemed to think there was nothing stopping her from treating me poorly. Despite my young age, she was consistently mean, making snide remarks and creating a negative atmosphere at home. However, she only acted this way when my dad wasn't around to witness it. In his presence, she was pleasant to me. At first, I was confused by her sudden change in behavior and blamed myself, thinking I must have done something to provoke her. Eventually, I reached my breaking point and decided to confide in my dad about Jenna's behavior. He confronted her, and we had a family meeting to address the issue. However, Jenna vehemently denied mistreating me and accused me of lying. She became visibly upset and started crying, so I was asked to leave the room while they discussed matters privately. Instead of retreating to my room, I stayed close by to eavesdrop on their conversation out of confusion and curiosity. Eavesdropping wasn't typical behavior for me, but I'm grateful I did it that day because it revealed Jenna's true intentions. I overheard her confess to my dad that she felt I never liked her even when they were dating, and that I was always rude to her. However, she chose to keep quiet, believing that if she treated me kindly, I would eventually accept her. This revelation exposed her hypocrisy, as she was guilty of the same behavior she accused me of. She went as far as to suggest that I was intentionally trying to sabotage their marriage by fabricating lies about her. She believed that because her kindness hadn't deterred her from marrying my dad, despite my behavior, I was now resorting to deceit to portray her as the villain. My dad seemed skeptical of her claims and questioned whether I was truly capable of such actions, as it didn't align with my character. However, Jenna persisted, insisting that I held resentment towards her for supposedly coming between my parents' relationship. She even implied that I may have been the reason why my dad's previous relationships failed, suggesting that any woman who spent time with me would realize my feelings and leave. Despite the fact that my dad had only introduced me to 2 girlfriends before Jenna, both of whom he subsequently broke up with, Jenna was determined to convince him of this unfounded theory that I resented her for my parents not being together. Since childhood, I had always seen my parents as nothing more than friends who took turns caring for me. Therefore, Jenna's theory that I was preventing my dad from reconciling with my mom didn't make sense to me. I was well aware of my mom's dating life, and I had no illusions about my parents getting back together. In fact, I had even expressed to my mom how happy I would be if my dad married her and made her a permanent part of our family. That was before Jenna's true colors surfaced. After overhearing her conversation with my dad, I realized what was really going on. Despite my young age, I understood that Jenna wanted to eliminate any reminders of my dad's past life with my mom because she felt threatened by it. She was jealous and insecure, so she resorted to mistreating me in an attempt to drive me away. Even as a child, I felt a surge of anger, retreating to my room to vent my frustration by screaming into my pillow. At 12 years old, I made a firm decision not to let Jenna's actions make me appear weak. When my dad asked if I was having issues with Jenna, I admitted to some past problems but assured him I would try to improve the situation. This response seemed to satisfy him, signaling the start of a silent competition between Jenna and me. I resolved that regardless of how she treated me, I wouldn't let it affect me, nor would I allow her to drive me away from my dad. I realized that constantly complaining to my dad would only lead to more family meetings and confusion for him, torn between believing his daughter or his wife. Instead of constantly seeking my dad's intervention, I decided to tough it out and show Jenna that she had chosen the wrong opponent. Yes, I was just a kid, but I wanted to make a statement and outlast her. Maybe I got some of that idea from watching too much TV, but at that moment, it seemed like the best course of action. Anyway, I made a decision. I wouldn't let her affect me anymore. Over the next few years, she tried her hardest to belittle me and corner me with her awful behavior, but I refused to let it bother me. I faced it all with a smile, determined not to let her get to me. It helps that I spent half of the month at my mom's place, so I didn't have to deal with Jenna constantly. Plus, she acted nice when my dad was around, so it wasn't too difficult to endure. When I left for college, I only returned home for holidays, and my dad was always there during those times, making it easier to handle Jenna. Recently, she still tried to take jabs at me when I visited, but it didn't faze me anymore. I knew deep down that I had come out victorious, and besides, I've grown a lot more mature since then, so her antics don't bother me like they used to. Moreover, whenever I visit home now, I always bring Adrien along, which forces Jenna to be pleasant to me in his presence. Adrien has met my family numerous times, and I was initially surprised to see Jenna genuinely being nice to him the first few times. Despite knowing our history, he's just naturally kind, so he remained courteous to her. It was unexpected to see Jenna actually liking him, as I didn't think she would ever warm up to anything associated with me. Nonetheless, I was relieved that she treated him differently and didn't subject him to the same treatment she gave me, as that would have made things quite awkward for all of us. Recently, Jenna sent Adrien a text filled with lies about me, urging him to reconsider marrying me because she believed it would ruin his life. She falsely claimed that I was seeing another guy from our neighborhood behind his back, but she had kept it a secret in the hope that I would confess. Since I hadn't, she felt compelled to intervene. Jenna alleged that I was only marrying Adrien because of his current job, and as soon as my other friend found a similar job, I would leave him. Additionally, she mentioned overhearing me on the phone with the other guy, prompting her to warn Adrien. None of these accusations were true. Furthermore, Jenna manipulated photos of me hanging out with the other guy, editing them to make it appear as though we were on a date, erasing everyone else in the pictures. These photos were actually taken at his birthday party, but Jenna's edits made the situation look suspicious. Adrien wasn't part of the social circle where the party took place, so he hadn't seen the picture beforehand since he's not active on social media. In her text, Jenna warned him not to confront me about it, fearing it would escalate matters and involve my father, potentially getting her in trouble. Instead, she advised him to end our engagement without discussing the situation. However, Jenna underestimated Adrien's trust in me over her edited photos. As soon as he received the texts, he approached me more curious than suspicious. After reading Jenna's messages, I explained that she was fabricating lies to sabotage our relationship right before the wedding. Adrien didn't hesitate to believe me. Infuriated, I immediately called my dad and recounted everything Jenna had done, including her recent attempt to ruin our relationship. I disclosed every detail of our strained relationship and the competitive dynamic we had concealed from him in the past, realizing that there was no longer any reason to hide it. It was evident that Jenna would persist in her attempts to manipulate me, and I was no longer willing to tolerate it, especially now that I was no longer a child. I refused to play into Jenna's mind games and decided to confront the situation head-on. I disclosed everything to my dad and issued an ultimatum. Either he cuts ties with Jenna, or I will cut him off instead. Understandably overwhelmed, he asked for time to process everything and speak with Jenna. I gave him until the end of the day to make a decision, making it clear that the choice was ultimately his. I believed my reaction was fair, given the circumstances. I had ignored Jenna's behavior for too long, but now that she was interfering with my relationship, I couldn't ignore it any longer. After presenting my ultimatum to my dad, I gave him space to make his decision without any influence from me. I didn't communicate with him for the rest of the day, respecting his need for time. It was essential for me to emphasize that I had no hand in his choice, as many, including Jenna's friends and some relatives, were quick to place blame on me for her departure from the house and my dad's decision to seek a divorce. Despite my efforts to stay out of the situation, I've been bombarded with accusatory texts, with some even suggesting that I've been plotting against Jenna since childhood, which is absurd. If I had wanted her gone back then, I would have achieved it long ago and not waited until now. My dad informed me on the same day that he ended things with Jenna, sounding upset about it, so I opted to give him space and refrained from discussing it further. With the wedding preparations taking up much of my time, coupled with the fact that the big day is just around the corner, we haven't had a chance to address the issue. Moreover, Jenna continues to message me, urging me to persuade my father to take her back. The other day, she sent me an email from a new account because I had blocked her on all other platforms, practically begging me to intervene and persuade my father to take her back. She claimed she was only trying to stir things up between me and Adrien and didn't intend any harm. I find it hard to believe her, especially considering she encouraged him to leave me without even giving me a chance to explain myself. According to her email, my father confronted her immediately after my phone call, and he was so furious that she couldn't adequately explain herself. He demanded she leave, and she hastily complied without fully clarifying the situation. Frankly, I doubt her explanation would have made much of a difference, so perhaps it was for the best that she left without delving into the truth. However, as I've been reading her email and the messages from her friends and family, I've started to question if I may have been too harsh in giving my dad the ultimatum. While I don't regret telling him the truth, because he deserved to know and I needed to express myself, I do acknowledge that issuing an ultimatum may have been excessive. Currently, Jenna is staying in a hotel, relying on me to reconcile things with my dad. I can't help but feel a sense of guilt for putting my dad in such a difficult position. Update 1. I want to express my gratitude for all the wonderful comments and overwhelming support. It means a great deal to both me and Adrien. I realize now that I may have been overthinking things and unnecessarily worrying about being perceived as the antagonist. Many of you have asked about the real reason why I didn't disclose to my father how Jenna treated me as a child, as some were skeptical of my explanation about wanting to demonstrate my resilience. Truthfully, that was part of it. I wanted to show Jenna that her behavior wouldn't break me. However, another significant reason was my father's happiness. He seemed genuinely content with Jenna, and I didn't want to jeopardize that. As a child, I was quite selfless, and witnessing my dad's joy in Jenna's presence was something I cherished. None of his previous partners had ever elicited such a positive transformation in him, and I didn't want to disrupt that by revealing Jenna's behavior. I recently had a heartfelt conversation with my dad, just a day or two after sharing my thoughts here. We delved into my childhood and discussed how Jenna treated me. He expressed remorse for not being present during that time due to his busy work schedule, and I forgave him because he has provided me with a wonderful life. Jenna always put on a remarkably pleasant facade whenever my dad was around, so there was no way he could have detected any tension between us. Furthermore, I never confided in him about our issues, so I don't hold him accountable for not recognizing them. He admitted that initially, he found it challenging to accept what I had revealed. However, after confronting Jenna about it following our conversation, he realized that he had to end things with her and owed me a sincere apology. When confronted about the texts she had sent to Adrien, Jenna initially tried to deny them, claiming it was a glitch. However, it was clear that the texts were authored by her. Upon further questioning, she confessed that she had deliberately attempted to sabotage the wedding, but insisted that she had a valid reason for her actions. Her supposed reason for trying to sabotage the wedding was that she believed my dad was funding the entire event, when in reality, he was only covering the venue costs. Adrien and I were responsible for all other expenses. Jenna and my dad had plans for a vacation in the upcoming months, and she feared that if he spent too much on the wedding, they wouldn't have enough left for their trip. Additionally, she expressed concerns that I would continue to ask my dad for financial assistance after the wedding. She had the audacity to claim to my father that she was merely trying to spare him from this financial burden. However, my dad saw through her deceit and, in a fit of anger, kicked her out and instructed her not to return. He finally realized the truth of everything I had told him. Despite Jenna's attempts to reconcile, my dad has chosen to ignore her messages and remain steadfast in his decision. It's unbelievable how she was willing to disrupt my wedding just for the sake of a holiday. It's even more ironic considering that she's the one who relies on my dad for financial support. Nonetheless, my dad has initiated divorce proceedings, and I hope it will be finalized soon. It's unfortunate that this upheaval is occurring so close to my wedding date, but I take solace in the fact that I will soon be rid of her presence. Update 2. With just 1 week left until the wedding, my dad's divorce proceedings began a couple of days ago. I had expected him to be a wreck emotionally, considering their lengthy relationship, but surprisingly, he's been handling it quite well. However, I can't shake the feeling that he might be bottling up his emotions. Whatever the case, I'm determined to ensure he's coping okay. I plan to connect him with a therapist and strongly encourage him to seek professional support. My mother shares my concerns, believing that suppressing emotions could lead to a breakdown in the future. On a positive note, Jenna has ceased attempting to contact me, which is a relief. If she had continued to message me, I likely would have been firm with her. My mother speculates that the prospect of alimony may have influenced Jenna's decision to stop contesting the divorce, and I find this theory quite plausible. It's likely that she'll proceed with her holiday plans solo now. Both Adrien and my mother have been invaluable sources of support for my dad and me during this challenging time, and I'm deeply grateful to them both. My mother has been particularly thoughtful, sending my dad prepared meals as she knows he struggles in the kitchen. It's not that he can't cook, it's just not his forte, a trait I've inherited. We're both notoriously bad at cooking. To ensure my dad doesn't feel isolated, we've made plans to have dinner together at least once a week. This way, we can stay connected and alleviate any feelings of loneliness. I've been grappling with a sense of guilt, as I feel partially responsible for their breakup. Despite knowing I did the right thing, these feelings persist, and I'm actively working through them with my therapist. Update 3. Adrien and I are officially married now. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and we're overwhelmed by the incredible amount of love and support we've received from all of you. Thank you so much for your kind words. It truly means the world to us. Our wedding was absolutely magical, filled with love and laughter surrounded by our cherished friends and family. While I could go on and on about the wonderful day, I know you're eager to hear about Dad and Jenna's situation. Jenna is currently insisting on keeping the house and receiving a substantial payout, but my dad's lawyer is vigorously contesting her demands. With my testimony against her, it's highly unlikely that she'll succeed, especially now that my dad sees through her facade. Her true colors have surfaced now that she knows she can't manipulate him anymore. Meanwhile, my dad is undergoing therapy to navigate through this challenging time, and I have every confidence that he'll emerge stronger from it all.